Kelly, we ready? Okay. I'll call the order the March 10th, 2022 Public Works Committee. Can we get a roll call, please?
Alderman Weggie,
Here.
Alderman Gould,
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Here.
Alderwoman Tice. Here. All members present.
All right, and then we'll go to the agenda approval. Bola, you mentioned something we're not going to do tonight, but that's in Parks and Rec, correct? Yes. So it's not an actual agenda item? Yeah. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so I would request that we postpone 9A.
A motion for that?
I think so.
I'll make a motion to postpone item 9A to the next Public Works meeting.
Second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right, we'll go on to citizen comments. Nancy, I'm going to hand these to you.
I don't know what animals live in there, but a lot of them do. 2 weeks ago, I saw a coyote twice, 2 days in a row, and we've had red fox in there since I first moved there. And they've been picked up a number of times, but some of them always seem to come back. I understand that the people in Shafford Woods, when they found out that the time frame had gone by and they could take the area over, they have moved their fences back so they own that property. But the county is not going to do anything behind that barricade. I've gotten Jim Thompson in the Heights, when I had it torn down, they came and burned the refuge that my nephews happened to cut back. So they're willing to cooperate. Now, Brentwood Forest cut it back about 10 years ago, and they're not going to put any more money into it. It's so overgrown now, it really is a jungle. And I want Brentwood to take it over because the county's not going to, and the Heights has taken over their share, and I think that we should share it with them. So I'm asking you to pass a motion. I know the man from your Parks Department came out there, I talked to him. Brentwood Forest did cut down a gigantic tree that was back there. It was either going to fall on that first house in Shafford Woods or it was going to fall on my unit. And so they cut it back, and it probably cost them $3,000 or $5,000. It was huge. So there are trees back there that are still not dead, but the vegetation will kill them this year. So I'm asking you to please pass a motion, whatever you have to do, finish cutting all that back and see to it that it's maintained, because I just can't do it any longer. I've lived there for 23 years and I did all this when I was in my 60s and I'm in my 80s and I'm not doing it anymore. And it is such an eyesore. And as I say, I saw a coyote 2 weeks ago for 2 days in a row. It's not living back there now, but I'm sure we'll have all those animals back again this summer. So I don't know what else I can say to you. You have the pictures. You can see what it looks like when it's overgrown. You can see what it looks like now. So on the basis of those, of what your own Parks Department man is going to say, I'm hoping that you will pass some type of a decision and you will help us out because we need your help.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Great. Thank you, Cecilia, for coming up and informing
If
us.
there are any questions, I'll wait until you have the report from the Parks Department in case you have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And I assume we're going to talk about that in the fantastic, so we'll just wait. Okay. Any other citizen comments? Anybody online?
No.
Okay, we'll move on to reports of the chair and alderman. I just have one thing. This is just a discussion topic. So Alderman Plufka and I have been talking a little bit, and I think we've had informal conversations. As you know, Alex Cavallini is a Brentwood resident who was the goalie for the Olympics. And I know there's been an initial discussion with Eric about some form of recognition And I just wanted to get a feel from this board if that's something that we were supportive of continuing to flesh out. I mean, I personally, one suggestion I had is maybe we could name, the ice itself, not the ice rink or the rec center, maybe in her honor. Maybe have a day of skating with the kids for free and kind of skate with an Olympian. I don't think we've ever had, an Olympian that lives in Brentwood, and luckily we have our historical expert here tonight, luckily. So, it just seems like a really awesome synergy with the fact that we have an ice rink and a hockey player. So I just wanted to get a sense from the board if we could recommend that we continue to flesh this out and kind of make this into a big deal.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I definitely think it's a great idea. It's pretty exciting. I had no idea. She lives around the corner from me, and I had no idea till the Olympics were going on. I think anything we can do to recognize this and involve the kids who live in Brentwood to get to meet someone who is an Olympian, it's a really big deal. So I definitely encourage the Parks Department to continue to flesh out a way to engage her.
Yeah. Thanks, Nancy.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? I mean, no action. Just wanted to
Yeah, I
get a
don't
feel.
need a motion for anything, but I think it's a great idea, and obviously, I think the goal areas seem to make a lot of sense. Maybe not just the ice, but like the goals themselves. Since she's a goalie, I think it's cool. Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
All right. All right. Thanks for your support. We'll move on to Alderman Gould.
This was mentioned at the board meeting, and I think might have been you that mentioned it, but I thought we needed to kind of say it again. But we really appreciate when citizens come and talk to us and give us a heads up. I actually had a citizen that reached out to us about some street issues, and we already have staff taking care of those, or has a plan to take care of those. So it just helps a lot when our citizens come and speak to us or reach out to us. So I thank you for that.
Steve?
No report.
Nancy?
I have a question. Could I ask that now? Of
course.
So I'm just curious what the status of the stormwater master plan is. I keep waiting to see it on an agenda, and wonder if we could find out when we're going to learn about that.
Dan can report about that during his departmental report.
Great, thank you.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Nancy. We'll move on to item 5A, City Administrator Report.
Thank you, Alderman Weggie. With us this evening is former police chief Dan Fitzgerald and president of the Brentwood Historical Society. Do you want to come to the podium? Sure. And share your request with the committee?
Thank you very much. The Historical Society has been working on a project for the last year to erect a monument in the old Evans Howard neighborhood to commemorate the folks that lived down there for 70 years. They were a big part of our community. They came to the area in the early 1900s, settled there, had a really, really tight-knit neighborhood. A lot of several generations that lived through there. All the kids went to the Brentwood schools when they were segregated in the 50s. And a lot of still former residents who live here in Brentwood and have a lot of fond memories of growing up down in Evans Howard. The monument we're looking at putting down there would be similar to like a historical marker that you see on the side of the road. It would have some pictures of the old neighborhood, of a couple of the churches, the school that was down there, and a map that we have an overhead look of the neighborhood. And it would be located on Rose Avenue in a little garden area that's right behind Micro Center. You probably notice it when you go down there. There's usually a really nice floral arrangement down there. And so we have the approval of the property owners, which is Site Properties out of Cincinnati. I've been communicating with them since last spring. So we have their blessing finally. It took a while. One of the parts of the agreement to using that facility, using that piece of property for our monument, is insurance. And we've looked into that. It's liability insurance. It would probably be a little out of the price range that the little old Brentwood Historical Society could afford. So with that in mind, and with that in mind also that we still are well short of our goal for funds to put this together. I approached Steve and the mayor and Bola, and we talked this morning about finding some way that the city could possibly help us with that, not only with the funding, but with the insurance aspect of it. You want to, shall I go further, or?
We kind of talked about, well, if you remember back in 2019, the Brentwood Century Foundation had a lot of events, and one of the events was having all the residents of that area come back, and there was a seminar put on, and you got to listen to their stories about their neighborhood and all. And it just seems that, you know, for the sacrifice they made of giving up their neighborhood down there and the huge tax benefit we get out of that area, I think more than just that boulder that sits over there by Total Wines, we could see if the city could meet them halfway with some funding to get, you've got a picture of it in there, a better monument that stands out and, you know, really honors the citizens of that area and the benefits that we've gotten from there. So I think Dan's needing some funding for the building of that monument. And then, as he said, some, how we would carry the insurance. So I guess I would really like to, you know, at least at the committee level, make a motion that we direct staff to look into how we can get this added to our liability. You know, how, in communicating with the management company down there, and then whether we build it with our own labor or go out to bid for it. Look at somehow funding this to get this completed.
I'll second the motion.
All right. Any other discussion? Questions? I am fully supportive of this. I mean, I think a little bigger is better because it is significant, as you said, Steve. It really is. Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, I'll say that I think it's a great idea. There's an area in Richmond Heights that I pass by every now and then that has a monument set up that Richmond Heights, I believe, dedicated to, I believe, Arthur Ashe, who used to live in a home there and play tennis. And I just always found that to be really powerful and cool. And I think to be able to have something like that for this neighborhood would be great.
I might add, it was important to us that this was representative and this was something that the residents would be pleased with. So they were included in the decision-making as to how this was going to look and what it was going to be, what was going to be on the monument. So it's important to them, and they're very excited about it.
So who owns this particular little mini park right now?
Site Properties.
Okay.
It's on their, it's the Brentwood Promenade, so it's on their property. We've already talked to their maintenance folks down there about, you know, utility issues and all that stuff with the grounds. We've been working with Graphics so far to kind of have a schematic and an idea of what the monument will look like. They're going to help us do, they were going to help us do the whole monument. We may just meet them halfway now, but.
And is there any Brentwood-owned property that's in this area at all?
No.
That's the only place that?
None.
Okay. I just get concerned about if something gets redeveloped and then that we don't have really a whole lot of, so how can we retain some rights to keep it in case of
I believe
development?
inside the agreement that was sent to me, there is a stipulation that if, you know, someday they decide to change everything, that they have the right to move our monument,
Okay.
which it is on their property. So.
All right, any other comments or discussion?
No, I'll just add that thank you for doing all this work to get it to this point, and this is really a great,
Thank you.
great thing.
I really appreciate your cooperation today from the city. It's awesome. It's going to make this work, I think.
All right, all those
Thank
in
you.
favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Great.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Paul.
I had one other thing, Brandon.
Yeah.
You know, when we were talking about that monument, the historical marker, it kind of started making me think about, you know, why can't we do this in other places? Like, you know, as we transform, the city's always transforming, and now we're doing Brentwood bound area. There's so many historical features down there that are no longer there. The Thomas Madden Quarry, you know, the mouth of the tunnel is going to be where the Dinky streetcar stopped that ran into Richmond Heights. And maybe as we look at the parks master plan in the next few years, look at maybe installing more of these historical markers and monuments in some of these pathways, especially along the GRG and that type of thing. So just a thought.
Thanks, Steve. All right, anything else, Bola, the city administrator?
Yes, no, I think that was it.
Okay.
So we're done.
All right, move on to item 6A, Parks and Rec, and I know Eric is not here.
I will present
Deputy Parks
this-
and Rec Director Bola Conde.
Right, I will present this for him. Okay, so the update, he's providing an update on the fence behind Walgreens. They, park staff, maintenance staff have completed the construction of the fence on the city's property behind Walgreens. The second item on here is the Eager Road dead end that Cecilia and Angle just spoke about. At the prior Public Works meeting, Dan presented the results of the survey that determined ownership, and apparently ownership lies with the city of Brentwood. So, and then we heard about this through Alderman Shelton, and because Cecilia reached out to him. So I think what he's recommending on here is that staff can have Davy Tree remove the plant materials, including digging out the honeysuckle stumps so it does not return, and that's a lot of work, but you know, we're happy to do it. But removing of all of this will create another area that the park staff or Public Works will now need to maintain. So what they are recommending is that after all of this has been removed, provided that the committee supports this, that staff be directed to plant some trees and then heavy mulching or rocking in the area, or rocks rather, in the area, so that we can reduce future maintenance of the area. So we just wanted committee or board direction to take on additional responsibility and not just, you know, do it.
Yes, Steve?
You know, part of that was in Richmond Heights, and the property owners there bought it, or maybe Richmond Heights just donated it, I don't know.
I don't know.
Why wouldn't we just maybe approach them and see if they want the rest of it?
So the original, from what I'm told, the original resident that the city of Richmond Heights donated to has moved. Is that correct? She died. Oh. So who, yeah.
And they're willing to cooperate, because they came and burned all that stuff after my nephews tore it down. I couldn't take care of it, and Brentwood Forest didn't want anything to do with it. So they sent in the burn unit, and left, so I know they will cooperate.
So the challenge with taking on more, and I think Eric talks about that, is then there's this expectation that you're gonna be right on it and do everything. And it's gonna take time to, you know, go throughout the city. And then when there's a major storm event, well, then everything's backed up. But he's not saying we can't do it. But if we do it, they would wanna plant trees and mulch and rock and things like that. Of course, the other option is to ask Richmond Heights if, well, whomever that new owner will be, if they wanna take it up.
Well, I definitely think we should I mean, we own it now, and we need to get rid of the stuff that's there. So I definitely think that we should pay Davy Tree to get in there, cut down the honeysuckle, dig up the roots, and then at that point, the house that's for sale might be sold, and maybe we sell or abandon the land to that owner, or if it's cleared, maybe Brentwood Forest would want it because it's, you know, it's already cleared, and we could explore it after that. But I do think at this point we own it, and it's full of stuff, and we should
Sounds like a motion to me.
fix it up. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
I haven't had a chance to even talk to Cecilia about this, but I have had informal discussions with Brentwood Forest, and obviously they have their own board, so it would have to go through them. But at least they were agreeable to the fact that if we could come in and initially clear everything out and kind of set them up, that obviously it's right there and it's easier for them to maintain that. Like Bo was saying, the north side was vacated by Richmond Heights, so if we just did a similar, we vacate our side after we've cleared it out. I think that they would be acceptable, pending their approval of all that, but
Can you fit pickleball courts in there, in that space?
cannot, no, no. It's a very small, and there's actually, because the Richmond Heights resident put a driveway on their side, and it's actually separated by 2 utility poles, right? So it'd be nice if they could extend
The
their
one
driveway.
bocce ball court?
Not close, but maybe a mini one. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, any other questions or comments? So basically, the motion is, have Brentwood pay David Tree, clear it out, and then formulate a response of what we do with it after that.
Okay, we can do that.
All right.
He has one more item.
All right.
McKnight Park.
Yeah,
We haven't
Oh,
a motion.
was
All
there-
those in
you
favor,
voted?
say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great.
Okay, last item is McKnight Park. On the 22nd of February, staff was notified that a truck had left deep tire ruts on the northwest side of the park. Staff is fairly certain that these ruts were left by one of the many construction trucks that are currently working on new home construction on Parkside Drive. Last Friday, staff utilized the dingo to even out the ruts. Staff laid down straw until weather improves enough to roll the area. I think the concern is that the resident that brought this to our attention wanted staff to address it then and there. And there's some backup work, from the winter storm. So ultimately, we will get there and address the issue, but we were trying to manage expectation, and I'm not sure we were successful in doing that.
Well,
well.
Well,
Session's done. Thank you.
They did my lawn 2 days ago.
Oh, did theirs?
I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have work done on it.
Okay.
You can't get excited anymore. Like that. We are fed up with
Okay.
we want all residents like you.
Okay, so that was just informational, right? Yeah. All righty. Planning and development, anything, Whitney? Nothing? All right, Public Works. Here we go.
Lots of topics. I'll just stand up here. Quite a few. So I'll just start at the top. So Rosalie Avenue STP and the MSD project. Those two are related in the sense that they're abutting the same street and have some overlap, but Fred Luth put in that manhole just outside the northeast corner, so that manhole 10S, it's done. They backfilled, so you see the cold mix around there. They removed the barricades. That's temporary, so probably in another 2 weeks, they'll be back in. They'll lay out of that manhole and head due north. So that parking lot will be torn up again, and we'll just have barricades installed again. We'll put together a notification when we know more information from them. The street lights, going back and forth with Ameren, there's apparently a permit, electrical permit, that Meyer Electric needs to send to the city. The city will then in turn inspect that particular meter base and then send that information to Ameren. So they said as soon as they receive that, they'd be able to mobilize. They've got their check. They have everything they need with the exception of that permit. So what that would do is energize the lights, and then we'll actually have 10 functioning lights along Rosalie. And then kind of skipping down to White Avenue, access to Swim Club Lane. That's related in the sense that Fred Luth is working on Bridgeport, White, and Rosalie. So this just came up yesterday, and it was put in the agenda underneath this item since they're related. But basically what they want to do, Luth is having issues trying to figure out logistically how to bring in materials, get trucks in on White, go past the Starbucks essentially, heading due east. If you go down to the dead end, I don't know if you've been down to that dead end, it's not very easy with a car, and then now you're talking about a dump truck or a cement mixer, so their only other option is to back up towards the Starbucks and then have one of their staff try to direct them to back up in the alley one way or another to do like a T-shaped turnaround. What they propose, which is in your packet, is this swim club extension. So I looked at it in the field, I looked at it on Google Earth. Basically, they would go to the dead end on the south side. There's already a driveway and a trail system that comes down and is tangent to Swim Club. They would widen that path. They would take out the driveway. Of course, this, I'll back up, but this would also depend on the private property owner that's on that side too. So if Brentwood supports it, but this person doesn't, it doesn't go anywhere. basically need both parties to support it if we wanted to entertain this. But it would be an exit only for trucks, so the truck would enter, drop off rock or whatever's needed, backfill materials, and go out to swim club and then come down Rosalie and then back out. And then same thing if, a resident needed an access point to get out if they're doing work, they'd be able to exit onto swim club. So it'd be a convenience to the folks that live on White Avenue. But as I said, he just now talked to, or left a message for the property owner, I believe it's a rental property, and they would need to come up with some sort of agreement tenant and then put that into some sort of agreement and bring it to us and then have us sign off on what we're agreeable to as well. But we just wanted to make you aware of this in the future.
So Dan, I have a bunch of questions, and I did talk to one resident at the end, not the one that would be losing their driveway, but across the street. So our friend that helped us with the Bridgeport White, and she was actually surprisingly in favor of this. But the question would be, do you think the residents would be able to use this, even if we just kind of turn a blind eye? Because they're worried about how they're going to get out of White while this construction is going on down by the Starbucks, that they're not going to be able to get out.
Right, yeah, they just saw it as for their trucks, but they're like, well, if we're working and we need people to be able to exit, we're working in the morning, rather than them have to jockey around the trucks, they could put signs that says exit only and make it a one-way exit. So it's
Right.
like you could leave in the morning or afternoon or whatever your time frame is, and then you'd still be able to come in from Brentwood Boulevard. So that would help alleviate some of the traffic congestion of them trying to get out while Starbucks is serving, while they're putting in, because they included the plan sheet too. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if
saw
anybody's familiar with sewer drawings, but there's manholes and pipe that's right there in the alley. It's across White. It comes through the alley and continues till it ties in here. So it's going to be pretty challenging.
And if they did this, they would put it all back, because that
They would.
ramp, that current ramp is kind of chewed up. It's asphalt. And
Right. They said they would agree to whatever we want them to do because it's making life easier for them. So initially, they would widen that to 12 feet because that would be substantially wider for a truck. And in this case, it would be, a heavier truck. So they would chop out the base, put in compacted rock, and then a 12-foot wide path.
Yeah.
And then they would also need to do a curb cut on Swim Club, because if you're out there, it's got an asphalt curb. And I said, well, the only warning I would have there is that, you have pedestrians that use that path. Eventually, after Memorial Day, you'll have swim club meets. And they said, well, they would be doing their work from, 7 a.m. to like 3:30. So there shouldn't be any swim club meets like Monday through Friday, they didn't think, but.
Right. Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of the fact that this, I know we talked about what do we do with this path, because it is getting crumbled and it's used by that neighborhood majority. So, I mean, I like that aspect of it. It could replace something that we know needs to be addressed at some point. I am concerned about creating traffic that comes through, and there's, when you're on that path, walking or riding your bike, with the retaining wall and all of the vegetation, it's kind of hard, if somebody's coming down, it's kind of hard to see somebody coming up the hill. So I'd be really concerned about pedestrian, conflicts. But if they can, I guess, work that out, and then once they widen it and their work's done and they put it all back, including they would take out the curb cut, right?
Correct.
It wouldn't be a curb cut there.
Yeah, because I said I wouldn't want the curb cut there just because it helps direct the water. And if I have the curb cut there, then it's going to, make it enticing for someone just to drive across the path when there's a swim meet.
Yeah,
If there's a curb,
yeah.
most cars can't climb over that curb without damaging the vehicle.
That was my other concern is creating a situation that now changes behavior and we already we already know that certain parts of our path, people get confused and they turn down them thinking they can drive on them. So whatever we can do once they are done to make sure that aren't any vehicle traffic on it, I think those are the concerns that I'd have to make sure that they address.
Yeah, and they did say that they would grade from White coming down to make it more of a gentle slope so that vehicles can come down. Right now, I mean, if you do walk it, it's pretty steep grade.
Yeah, it's not ADA. at
Right,
all.
we have nothing close to it, yes. So that would be a bonus in having them do this, is that, once they rip away that and then put it back, it's like you would have a flatter hillside for people to walk down that way.
Do you know how long approximately this would be in place? 2 months, 3 months?
It's gonna be months. They wouldn't commit to an exact date, but they said it would be months. So it would be, if this moves forward, however quickly the agreement and everything comes into being, it would probably be at least a 2-month process for them to get the pipe in and exit. And then it would be done this year, though, so.
And then, do you know if Rosalie would still be closed while this is happening? Because you're going to direct trucks, and then they're going to have to go all the way up to Eulalie and add to that
Yeah,
problem.
because it's kind of confusing. Like right now, they've got a bore pit at Rosalie, then this receiving pit would be at White, and that's when they put the pipe in, because they're going to try to bore some of that pipe in so that they're not tearing up the alley the whole length. Because they said, well, you're not shutting White down like you did Rosalie. And he said, no, we can't. There's no other means for those folks to get in and out. At least with Rosalie, you can come down Swim Club and turn onto Mary or continue on Rosalie. This one's a little more challenging. I said, well, have you looked at Bridgeport? And he's like, no, I haven't looked at that. I just want to tackle these first. Because I know Bridgeport's got the bigger bulb, the cul-de-sac, but I don't think that a truck could negotiate it with cars parked on that street.
Well, they could just drive down that new path and then use this temporary road. Yeah, Nancy.
Will they presumably take some of these trees out, and would the
Two of them, they think, would have to come out.
and will they replace the trees when, I guess I'm sort of like, it won't really look like this when it's finished because they will have flattened it.
Right.
And we've got to regrow stuff, but will they replace trees there or elsewhere?
We can ask that. It hasn't come up. They just wanted to see. It's like, well, if people are dead set against it, then there's no sense in pursuing it. But that could be part of, the agreement is this is what I want for you to do this. So I'll ask them.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I know I can't make a motion, but again, I had time this afternoon after we heard this to go talk to one resident, and they were actually in favor of this with a lot of the concerns that Jeff had about, all these kids that are coming down the path and all that. And then also after swim meets and how do you stop? But, it seems like their suggestion was parking a large truck in front of it, but, we could probably get a barricade or something, that stops people. And also, you're exactly right, because once people find a secret way through the neighborhood, they will, exploit it.
I wonder if this is something that there could be a barricade during non-working hours, like some sort of a
Right.
large
like
barricade that could be at the
Yeah,
top, so.
bollard or
Yeah.
something. Like I know Eric put in the removable bollards. Maybe that's something. Because I'm thinking a chain, somebody wouldn't see it and they just drive right through it,
So,
especially at night.
you need a motion to?
Well, they're looking for direction, and they want it by early next week, and it sounds like there's still a lot of ifs. If they can get the easement, if they can get agreement with that property owner, if it's agreeable to us, then once we get to the details. But it sounds like they're looking for a feel on, like, is this a heck no, no matter what, or is it a?
Right. Just the temperature, and then we, essentially, if they get agreement from the private owner, we would bring back an agreement to this committee and then explain this is what they're willing to offer to make this happen.
I think it's worth exploring more.
I agree.
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we move forward with the
Second.
recommendation.
All right, any other comments? All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Okay. Jumping down, this is an easy one. Request for removal of the ADA assigned parking spot, Ward 3, 8910 Madge. The board approved us to remove that, and we removed it. So there's no more sign and post there. We took it back to the shop. We can use the sign and recycle the steel post. So we're good, unless there's other questions on that one. Litzinger Road at Helen, concrete slab condition. This came up, a resident informed us about the spalling, where the top surface is real jagged and worn. This area has been patched multiple times because I looked and you can see the rubbery, black asphaltic stuff that we had crammed in there, and it's peeled away too. I mean, it's been a harsh freeze-thaw cycle with this year and even last year. So we determined we shouldn't try to saw cut it and patch little areas. We're just going to take it out joint to joint. And there's probably 8 slabs that need to be replaced there in that intersection. So looking at everyone's calendar and how we have staffing, next week's weather looks cooperative. So we called in locates since that's the first thing we have to do. And then we put together notification letters and we indicated that we would start on Tuesday. So Tuesday, it'll just be a couple slabs that we demolish, and then the next day, put in forms, and then the next day pour concrete. And then it'll have to cure for a few days, and then once that's cured, then we can open that up to traffic and then jump to the other side. So we're only gonna affect one side or the other, so we're always let traffic through there. So I don't think it's an issue. I know we notified Douglas Court and like a 300-foot radius around that intersection. I know that it came up later about the school. I don't know when their spring break is, but we can notify them as well. It would make sense.
So is that scheduled to actually start next Tuesday then?
Yes, because we thought, well, we actually have enough staff, even if we're covering sanitation, which we are, because no one's put in for vacations. There might be like one person, but typically if we have 2 or 3 people gone, we can't supply that many people to do work like this. But since we can, we just figure we tackle it. The weather's going to work with us too. Our goal is to have everything done before Manchester Road has its second closure and the closure at the bridge. Because we thought, well, if we're done there, the residents, if they need to avoid Manchester, they'll be able to go through these neighborhoods. And that would make this better, and then they wouldn't be in our way. We wouldn't be crossing paths.
Okay. Are any questions about that, or? Great.
All right. And then the access ramp, curb cut Lee Wynn Trail near the intersection of Eulalie and Rosalie. I just put that in there just so that we wouldn't forget about it. We'll keep putting updates meeting to meeting, but we're hoping that once we're done with Litzinger and Helen, then we could do this as filler work. Since there is no ramp there, we thought, well, prioritization wise, let's fix the slabs because that gets used every day. This curb cut, although it's important, it's a lower priority, and assuming we get the heavy lifting done with these slabs, then we'll be able to just do a simple saw cut and remove part of the trail and put that back as a little concrete ramp. And then skipping down to the next item, Mary Kay Court. Bomarito Construction, I talked to them. They're the contractor working for Missouri American. They haven't transferred any of the service lines to those homes, nor have they transferred service lines to Marblehead and any of their jobs, with the exception of they're working on Bremerton right now. So there's about 15 service lines. I put the POA as their plan of adjustment. So the little orange service lines are indicated on there and the addresses. One of the more challenging things with them is that if they're lead services, they have to get a letter from the homeowner, and they need to replace the lead service all the way up to the property, to the home itself, just outside the home. So they think that'll take them a couple months, so I can't really work in that circle until they're done. Otherwise, they're just going to tear up what we put in. One of the 2 different products I thought about was either Rubberway, which is like what we used on that trail. They make a different composition, this Rubberway 6000, so it's a heavier grade. It can take, vehicle loads and stuff. That would be something we could fill in that circle with. We'd leave area around the fire hydrant, and there is a little bitty tree there, but we would block out around them. We could put that in so you could drive over it. It would let water through. Or it's been talked about before, like a grid system. So this Easy Pave grid, it's like plastic. They snap together. There's like an under drain to it, and there would be compacted rock underneath it. And it says it can support up to 80,000 pounds. So pretty much anything could drive over that island without leaving ruts. That's an option too. I'd kind of like to explore that one further, see if it's in line with the price on Rubberway. If it is, maybe we go with that. If it's too expensive, then I would go with Rubberway. We know how that works. Then we would just come back and figure out a color. The other stuff Easy Pave comes in 3 colors, but you can put colored rock within the little plastic grid if you wanted to make it a little more decorative. And then that would keep the maintenance down too in that island, so that parks, wouldn't constantly, have issues if there's a lot of rain and they can't get to it and the grass keeps growing. Well, then it gets high, and in this case it wouldn't, because it's either a rubberized material or it's a grid.
Yeah, so the grid just has gravel in it. It doesn't allow grass to grow through.
Correct. So I just was curious, it's like, well, if you put the gravel, how well does it stay tight in that grid? It should stay compacted, but I definitely know the Rubberway doesn't move. If you walk on that path, this is even heavier material. I think there's at least half a dozen colors for the Rubberway 6000. So you could pick something that's green if you want it to look like grass, or red if you want it to look like brick. So
It's such a nice island,
Right.
except for the 3 feet of tire ruts around the outside of it right now. And it
yeah,
looks
because Mary
really,
Kay
really
was
bad
pretty
right now.
devastated. That tire was within an inch or 2 of the fire hydrant, the
Right.
brand new hydrant.
Right.
And I knew they hadn't done the service lines only because there's 2 hydrants out there. If you look, there's the new one that
And
they
the old
just
one.
put in that it hasn't had the top painted, and there's the old one on the other side of the circle.
Right, in somebody's yard.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they will remove the old one, once they're done with the service line transfers and abandon the main.
I mean, I like the rubberway idea. I think it's going to look weird. This
Right.
is a grassy island, and I kind of wonder how the rock stuff would look. I mean, do you think there's any options that would retain grass? I know a lot of people have these kind of hidden driveways in their yard.
Yeah, they do have those. I looked at those and I'm like, well, I don't know how well they do if somebody drives over it. It says you can only drive over it once or twice and then you've killed the grass essentially. And then I don't know how well it does if you're not watering it. Because it does come up like in areas of the paver. They do make pavers that are porous and you can lay them in like a herringbone pattern or whatever you want. Those were kind of neat. And those would just be compacted, either gravel or sand underneath it, and they're colored. But to me, that would be just like a whole lot of extra. It would look impervious, but you could make it pervious. The rubberway almost looks, But we can bring those back to you. I'll get the price from the salesman, and maybe the grid stuff isn't even an option if it's too pricey. I know I just got costs for the little recycle carts like we use in Brentwood Forest, and the cost has gone up 40% just in a little over a year.
Right.
And they said that polyethylene and any of the plastics are, and they said it actually came down from where it initially was, which still 40% to me is a pretty significant bump in 18 months.
So it sounds like we have a while anyway before they're done with the water mains, before we can even get in
Right.
there. So we've got time to.
Yeah, and I thought, well, then I can
noodle on
bring
this a little bit.
proposals back, and then we'll figure out, get a little more. And I know that the grid stuff, they said they can actually do like a mock-up and work with us, and maybe it'll look better if we see some kind of rendering.
Okay. Yeah. Nancy.
In the grid, when you look at the Easy Pave grid, it says grass driveway grid. Can we put this
You
down?
can plant grass in there. That was the other option. That's why you said it has the under drain system. So it's like you could put your gravel down and your filter fabric over it, and then snap this plastic together, and then you can fill it with dirt and plant seed and straw, and it would grow grass. So then it would look like grass, but it would have the support underneath it. If you drove over it, it shouldn't rut up. So that's why I kind of like that. It's like, well, you could put gravel around the edge maybe, and then plant grass in the other concentric circle. It just seemed like it had other abilities than just
Right.
paving it.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I like that idea. Just looking at the pictures, if it's just a black kind of plastic grid, that doesn't look too
No.
nice at all. And I think this is being one of the larger ones. I know we had a year ago had talked about, do we do like a 3-foot border of the rubberway instead of the whole
Oh, yeah, for
thing?
Barnstable, yes.
I mean, so I'd say that I'd echo Alderman Wegge's comments about, it seems like overkill to fill the entire circle with anything, really. So I think if there's a solution that allows us to still retain some grass look, and keep it from the occasional time that people run over it, keep it from getting totally torn up, I think that would be a good option.
Okay.
I don't know if we need more information from you as far as cost and ability before making a motion, I guess is a question.
It sounds like we couldn't do anything right now if we wanted anyway.
Right. We'll just bring it back to the next meeting. It's like we should have cost then. It's like, and then we'll see what options they suggest we could do to make it look like grass, or actually put in grass. What, seed mixture do you need, and, conditions and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and when we talked about this a year ago, the other thought was maybe this is like an experiment, and if something doesn't work, and if it does work, great, then maybe we deploy it onto other bigger circles, because we had those 11 or so that are trouble.
Right. Yeah, this is kind of like the speed cushion. It's like, try it out. If you like it, fine. If you don't, remove it, and lessons learned.
All right, look forward to seeing that. Thanks.
Okay.
Unless there's other questions.
And then a couple other things, Route 100 Manchester Road closures. I know that Bola sent information to the board, so I didn't know if you'd had a chance to read it, but the information, basically there's two different things going on here. The big takeaway is that the second weekend closure would commence at 9 p.m. on April 22nd, and then it would go through the weekend through the 24th, and then they would reopen it on the morning of the 25th, that Monday morning. And then there's also this more permanent closure, which would be the Black Creek Bridge. And that's the bridge just west of Hanley Road near Joy Luck. And that's planned to close May 2nd. So the morning of May 2nd, which is a Monday, they would start putting up barricades and let just a few cars through and then close it off. And then, that day or the next morning, the 3rd, they would just start demolition. And once everything's demolished, then start with their bridge abutments and the rest of their new bridge structure. So this is going to be, several months of work. It's late August, targeting around the 29th of August 29th, 2022 to have it reopened. So.
We showed that schematic for the next weekend closure, the April 22nd.
Correct. That's in here and that's been posted.
We showed that at our award meeting, and the reception was very positive on that because I think it really kind of articulates what's happening. One question was, is the old driveway to the apartments going to be back open onto Manchester? Because we close that down right now, and then they're going into the new entrance, which is off of Dorothy there. Will the old entrance be reopened? So if somebody's coming down Manchester, because it said, we're going to put a sign that says apartment traffic only, do not go in, which happened last time, or will that entrance be totally closed?
I'll have to ask. That's a good question. I don't know. I'll have to ask KCI. We have our weekly meetings and I can ask them.
Yeah, I was assuming it was going to be totally, so those apartment people will have to drive all the way through the neighborhood to get there.
Yeah, because right
Or
now, if you
coming the
live
other way, if they're coming.
in the apartments, you can't take Van Mark Way. You have to come across like where the playground used to be and then come out on Dorothy and then figure your
Right.
way out. Yeah, I'll find out and post something in our weekly report and let everyone know. Yeah, I don't know if you've been through that area, but yeah, they've removed the playground, they've started storm sewer work, and it looks totally different now.
Crazy.
Yeah, they actually seem like they have two entrances now for the people who are in those first few apartments there on the south end, and then the main entrance. So interesting to see it all play out.
And there was something mentioned about not knowing the exact detours yet.
For when they closed the bridge, like
Right.
we gave a drawing that shows the second weekend closure, but right now, those are just kind of preliminary, what they submitted to the county, the detour. So instead of like going up, all the way up to I-64, MoDOT was proposing taking Eager Road. They don't want people to shortcut Litzinger to Rosalie or any of that stuff. I mean, I'm sure people will figure it out with a smartphone, but, they don't want to publish that because that's not the right way to go about it. They want you to go the way they want you to go. And they'll have signs posted. So we should be getting a traffic control plan that we can then give to Janet, to do a communications blitz and make everybody aware of where we want you to go to get around this area.
But we don't have a time frame on that yet.
We've asked at our meeting, and they don't have it yet.
Okay.
But they will develop it, kind of like they did this other one. But it'll have more details because it'll show lane drops and, it'll actually show you the type of signage that they'll put at Hanley Road. So those will be like type 3 barricades that say do not enter. They don't want anybody entering. They'll have like someone posted there for KCI to let their trucks in and out while they're doing construction, concrete pours, things like that, but.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. And then.
Yeah, Jeff?
I just have one more. I mean, I think in preparation for that, and yeah, it's good that they want to try to direct people to Eager Road. I think practically, though, we need to be prepared as a city for more traffic on Strassner. I mean, I think people are going to figure out that they can turn there at Buffalo Wild Wings and then just cut through if they want, So just as whether that's public safety, police department, just mitigation plan that just in case we start seeing increased traffic there.
Major Hawkins is here, and do you want to speak to how flexible and fluid the department is to react to this like you all did that initial weekend?
Thank you for that, by the way.
Hello. The initial weekend was actually a little, I'm glad that it was what it was, quite frankly, because it gave our officers an opportunity to kind of come to the table then afterwards with Public Works and MoDOT and KCI, and we were able to kind of figure out, okay, why did that not really work out well for us? And a lot of the complaints that we got were from residents saying, hey, we've got bi-state buses coming through, we've got traffic and it's speeding, and of course that's what would happen. So we sat down and we formulated a plan kind of with MoDOT, KCI, Public Works, and it had to do a lot with like increased signage, better communication, and a more concrete plan for how we as a police department would respond to the traffic issues specifically. First of all, specifically for the other temporary closure, that is so much better laid out in my opinion right now because we have turnaround points. We have an idea of how many officers we'll need to handle that for that time period, and I think that's going to be extremely manageable, and it's going to be a relief on the residents too. And Dan's been an awesome help with providing signage and suggestions and getting us hooked up with MoDOT and how we can best like be a partner in that to make it better for our residents and the people traveling through, quite frankly, because that's kind of a shock to come through and Manchester's closed. The longer term one, I think, is going to be a little bit more fluid. They're going to obviously have more in-your-face signage and stuff like that, and you physically will not be able to drive down Manchester unless you drive into a hole, which we'll respond to that too. After Ronnie's people get there, but don't tell him I said that. But I had spoken with Bola a little earlier this week, and we talked about how fluid that could be. We really have to let that play out the first couple days and see what our issues will be. They could be maybe people trying to get into the neighborhoods to turn around. They could be lack of proper signage. It could be we don't have enough officers. It could be we have too many. And so we're going to really play that day by day, hour by hour as that goes along for the long-term closure. It's my estimation with these kinds of things that typically what will happen is the first couple of weeks might be a little confusing for people, but once the word gets out, especially region-wise, it's really going to calm down. And people are going to know ahead of time, hey, I can't go that way because of X, Y, and Z. But I do think the first 2 weeks will be kind of critical, so we're going to stay on top of that in terms of communicating with Dan and the project workers and making sure that we're as available as we can be and as flexible as we can be with our personnel to try and make sure that we keep folks who don't need to be in the neighborhood out of the neighborhood. Recommunicating with bi-state again, because I think they missed the memo. They got a memo, and then there was no memo, and then following up with them at the very last minute too. Just kind of following up on those last minute details is something we can do to help out too. So if there's any specific requests or questions, I'm happy to.
I mean, since I brought it up, I think that what I'm most concerned about is the area by Memorial Park and the why, and especially during the summertime when we've got kids and people around there, and we've got frustrated vehicle, people thinking they can hurry up to get to where they really want to be because now they've been inconvenienced, so maybe speed through those areas. So
Sure.
I think that's what we just have to, if they don't go to Eager, which I hope they do, but if they don't,
They
I think we
choose.
just need to be
Sure.
mindful of how we're going to watch for people speeding through,
Absolutely.
especially that section.
Absolutely. And you make a great point too, because when the summer camp is in, I mean, even 25 miles an hour sometimes I feel like
That's
is
right.
not okay. I drive that every day and I'm like, oh boy, I'd rather be doing 15 than anything else. Because, there's tiny little kids and the adults can only corral so many at one time and you just never know. And I completely understand that fear. And if that becomes a problem, we can definitely put something together where we put up some temporary enforcement project to target that area specifically, because not on our watch will that happen. So,
Any other questions, comments?
I'll save my, how we're going to budget police overtime for the Public Safety Committee meeting later this month.
sounds good. I look forward to it. Okay,
All right.
Economic development sales tax.
thank you.
All right, Dan, is that it? I think that's it. right?
Actually, I had two things in my mind that had come up that I just wrote down on here, but Alderwoman O'Neill had asked us if we could freshen up the pavement markings at Hanley Industrial and Strassner, so we did that this week. So we redid the turn arrows and the stripes and that sort of thing. I mean, those fade generally, like every year we're repainting that, but we thought it would be a good idea while the weather cooperated to repaint it and get it ahead of whenever they're doing these closures, and then people that aren't familiar with the area can now see, because I've seen people jockey around because, one of them's a turn lane and the other's a straight lane with a turn, And it seems like they get to the stop sign and don't necessarily know what they're doing. So we redid that. And then the question was asked about the stormwater report. I did have a meeting with Gonzalez Companies last Friday. And what we did was we sat down and they have all 217 problem areas or areas of concern categorized. So it looks like there's basically 6 generic categories. The largest, of course, being private issues, such that it's a pipe that's at the curb that's draining onto the pavement that creates either icy conditions or unwanted water. So that's the lion's share of the problems. The other problem areas that say are because either a storm pipe is undersized or hydraulically they don't think something's right. Like I know in particular there was an area at McKnight and Pine. They don't think that the throat of the inlet is wide enough or tall enough, and it might be piping related too. So that's something that they would have to dive into with MSD and figure out if we could improve that. So basically, they want to put together a list. They'll meet internally with us, and then we'll bring that list back to the next meeting and then explain like what we plan on doing moving forward. Then they would need to put together cost estimates and things of that nature. So they're thinking somewhere in the April, May timeframe, they would have these cost estimates, and you'd be able to figure out budget-wise where you want to place those in the queue. Can we do any in 2022 with the OMCI money? Can we do them in 23, 4, 5, and so on and so forth? So it's getting near, I've seen what they have draft-wise, but now they need to split it out and see how it makes sense with our money.
Thank you for the update. I
Yep.
appreciate it.
And I did get information from MSD. They did approve what I had submitted last year, which was the Gonzalez stormwater report. So now we can take some of that money that was earmarked for us and then pay ourselves back that we already paid Gonzalez. So I just need to get signatures on it, and then once we get receipts together, we can turn in Gonzalez receipts, and then MSD will pass the money back to us. And that was it.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
Yep.
Nobody has anybody else? All right, Suscom, and Eric's not here. Oh, great.
Good evening. So at the previous meeting, we were looking at possibly providing a rebate or that on business license for those restaurants joining Green Dining Alliance. Hello. So at the previous meeting, the board was discussing whether to provide a rebate or look into lowering the business license for those restaurants entering into the Green Dining Alliance, and you were looking for an opinion from the city attorney. So we provided that here in the packet. At the end, he essentially says that rather than providing a tax rebate, rather than just reducing the fee, maybe the city should provide a tax rebate to restaurants operators who demonstrate to the satisfaction of the city that they have adopted and continually utilize the business in the Green Dining Alliance. However the board wishes to proceed with that, we would be happy to.
Yeah, and I have one clarification. So at the last meeting when we talked about this, there was a question about if other cities do something like this, and I was incorrect in saying that there is not. So Kathy O'Neill, explained it to me afterwards. But so Maplewood does refund $100 every year, which basically covers. So I believe the audit cost is like $200, and then it's $125 per year after that. So, and that is part of their Green Dining Alliance neighborhood or zone, whatever they call it. So I was incorrect last meeting. Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, I think this raises an interesting question, but I think the sticking point that I have is that if it's just associated with Green Dining Alliance, what I'd love to see the Sustainability Commission come up with is, are there criterias for, and why does it all have to be restaurants? Are there criterias for reduction in sustainability efforts, that businesses can demonstrate, that can be established, that then we offer, some incentive or percent off of their business license rather than having it be so tied to Green Dining Alliance as an entity. And maybe it starts with restaurants, but if I'm a restaurant and I do green initiatives, why wouldn't the city recognize those efforts, even if I'm part of Green Dining Alliance or not? So I guess that's my question of, I think it's an interesting proposition to incentivize, but I'm not sure we need to subsidize people's affiliation with Green Dining Alliance specifically.
Yeah, Nancy?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting idea, and I certainly appreciate Kevin's comments about the particular organization, but I certainly think that these kind of goals are great for Brentwood, and anyway, if Suscom could come back and come up with similar agreements or similar incentives, I would be supportive of a slight reduction to the annual fees that they pay, as long as they continue to maintain the.
So it's an interesting topic. So if you were to take Navigate, for instance, that has a net zero building, and what do they pay? Is it, what, are they exempt?
They're an exception business, which is
Exception
based upon the
business.
square footage of their office.
And so we start to look at the revenue that the city could possibly be losing. It could be big. So because the Green Dining Alliance is the one established, one that we know about now, then maybe it's easier to participate. But it would definitely require further research to see what the impact would be if we did it across the board for a company that's net zero building. I don't know how much revenue how much they pay to the city based on their gross square footage.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't remember their gross square footage off the top of
Yeah.
it, but it's 10 cents per square foot. So if they're 5,000 square feet, it's,
$500. So it might not be much, but it depends on how many businesses participate. And if that's what we do to support sustainability efforts, that's what the city does.
That might be that might be it.
I think it'd be great to incentivize this across the community. I think, one of the reasons green dining exists is that food waste is one of the larger, by poundage things that goes in the landfill. And it really comes down to no styrofoam and do you have a composting plan? If we ask Suscom to come up with criteria, they're gonna go to the Green Dining Alliance and just print out their website, of what's their audit, right, for $100. Green Dining Alliance is funded by St. Louis County as well, and the Health Department, and I believe the Department of Natural Resources as well. So it's I don't know. I would support that. It just seems like, we're asking Suscom to go figure out rocket science when one of the motivators here is I hear from residents all the time, I wish we had restaurants like Maplewood. I wish we had restaurants like Maplewood. And what is Maplewood doing? This. Yeah.
So as I've thought about this a second, 'cause, the only concern now that I'm thinking about it is if we have our own criteria, then we would then have to be in charge of inspecting the restaurants and figuring out who, or businesses or whatever, and who's doing what, and what staff do we have to do that. So it's a little making sausage in the room, I'm not sure. That may be less desirable for this, just all around for the city, regardless of just for staff.
Yeah, I'd like to see the numbers too. We just got done several meetings ago scrutinizing the fees that planning and development collect. And then here we are looking to reduce some of the fees, possibly for a benefit. So, I would really like to see the cost of something this being employed as to what it's going to do to our budget. I know it's small, but we seem to be doing this in increments. Of course, I wasn't for paying for EV charging for people that can afford $70,000, $80,000 car. I know it's nickels and dimes for the city, but I just see this escalating. And I think we really need to look at the numbers before we get out in front of this.
I know what the number would be right now. If we pass this right now, it would be 0. So 100 times 0 is a 0.
What do you mean?
We have no Green Dining Alliance restaurants.
But if we were giving a rebate, I mean, eventually they would come on.
That's the theory.
Or less than that. Because I remember during COVID, when it started in 20, the mayor was looking at what kind of incentive we could offer restaurants in town, because we were hearing about what St. Louis County was doing. And I think we worked with planning department to get a sense of how many restaurants we have. And at that time, it was like almost 11. So it's not even a lot right now. But with the MC district coming online, it could mushroom and grow. But
Yeah, but if we do this for more, I mean, as this goes on and we start doing it for more incentive purposes, you know, I can't think of, maybe if giving grocery stores a cut, as I said before, in their sales tax, if they go back to paper bags instead of plastic bags. I mean, where does this start?
not sales tax. You'd have to look at something else.
Well, whatever it is, whatever, it'd be revenue to the city we would lose
Yeah.
for these type of incentives. And in the grand scheme of things globally, what is the effect that it really produces or reduces compared to what the revenue we lose and the efforts we put into, you know, looking after that revenue and making things better for the citizens? I just don't want to see that get out of hand, I guess.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
But those are hypothetical, correct?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, what is the, if we do pass this, and you're saying it's just going to be 12 restaurants, can you equate that for me? Because I don't know, into what type of savings that would be as far as landfill or, you know, anything like that, as to just promoting those businesses on the website, not giving them, you know, just making them stand out above the other restaurants that aren't doing it, instead of giving them a financial incentive to do it.
Yeah, Jeff.
I mean, I think that's a very fair point, and I think, you know, to put a finer point on it, is less than an emotional reason, but a more practical reason. You know, what is it does it equate to, you know, in a reduction of you know, the waste that we pick up and the recycling charges or whatever it might be that we might incur that, you know, contributes to the gain that we get, right? So I agree. I think it's an interesting idea, but there's not enough for me to really, other than a feel-good message, there's not enough teeth to it to say, okay, yeah, this would be a great thing for our community right now.
And maybe this is just like a hint to the Sustainability Committee. Give us that information when it's brought to this level so that we can make a judgment on it instead of just, okay, you know, we're sending up a flag, this is what we're doing because Maplewood's doing it or something of that nature. I would just like to be able to make an analytical decision here if the loss of revenue to the city is worth it. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, Nancy.
Oh, I was going to say, I think I'm generally supportive just with this concept. I think we don't know enough about what it would do, and there's not a lot of agreement, so I'm not sure that, you know, is there something we could bring back that would get more agreement? Is there something the staff could provide that, I mean, are some of the things that poundage waste or people look at the Green Dining Alliance, and so then more people would go to those restaurants and we'd get more tax revenue. So that, I mean, does the Green Dining Alliance provide anything like that, that people tend to go to those restaurants more? And so then we'd get more tax revenue that would make up for the slight reduction in.
Sure. I think that's easily attainable.
I mean, just like I had concerns about receiving information regarding EVs and all of that directly from Ameren, like, it's a bit of a built-in bias. So receiving a sales pitch from Green Dining Alliance is, I don't know that, I need to hear from a staff perspective, or even a SUSCOM. I know, like you said, it's maybe asking much of that commission to really put some pen to paper and figure things out. Maybe that's beyond the pale ask for them. But I'd like to see some more unbiased kind of like this, here's the facts, and this is what the upside could be, and here's how it's going to impact the revenue on the city, and then we make a decision.
So I think you answered Nancy's question of, is there any information that could be brought to you that would get you behind this? And the answer is no, right? Because Green Dining Alliance is the experts in this. They're the ones auditing, they're the ones doing this. And you're saying you won't accept any information from them.
I'm not saying that I won't accept any information from them. I'm saying that their information, yes, paired with an analysis from somebody else, I think, so that we can see the balance in it. From a city perspective, I mean, their pitch has value, but, sales pitches are going to be sales pitches, I mean, it's what it is.
I think we can bring back some more information that might convince you of the benefit of this. While you were talking, I went to the Maplewood City website, and they have the nation's first green dining district.
Yep.
That could be a goal for the city of Brentwood as well. And they're publicizing all the members that are on there. They have the Let Them Eat art. They have all kinds of different festivals. And I think with our new district, whatever it becomes or named, there could be a potential to really market the heck out of that.
And the Green Dining District is not necessarily sponsored, that's just what they're calling it. It's not like sponsored by
that's
Green
what-
Dining Alliance or Green
give a-
Dining District.
They give $100 off
To the-
per year.
To the members of that. And if we have 11 restaurants, it's not
And also,
much.
I think they do more in the Green Dining District. It's more than that. They provide communal composting, things like that. So like.
Right, so that's a
but it's
bigger
$100
program.
bucks.
Right, it's a bigger program, it's a
Right.
bigger initiative than just Green Dining Alliance stuff. And I think that's,
It could
No,
grow.
it's all Green Dining Alliance, but it's bigger than just a reduction of the Green Dining Alliance annual fee.
okay.
Which is, again, what that fee covers is that audit that happens every year to make sure they're following all the best practices.
Composting, recycling, waste reduction practices, making a tangible impact on sustainability in your community.
And that's why I personally think this is important. As we're waiting for development to start here any minute on Manchester, I think it's important that we have this in place because these are the restaurants we want to attract. Again, I hear from residents all the time. I wish we had restaurants like Maplewood. I wish we had restaurants like Maplewood. So I'm a big fan of replication. What's Maplewood doing?
Do you think Maplewood, without giving them that $100 rebate or however they handled it, that would not, the Green District, or the Green Dining Alliance District would not have happened?
I don't know. I mean, the Green Dining District is a Maplewood thing that is in conjunction with Green Dining Alliance for those, the practices of green dining.
And I'm just wondering if they were to promote it that way without giving the financial incentive, if that would have occurred.
I think,
We just don't know.
I know the lady that was over this, their community development person, back when all of this kind of got started. And, Maplewood wasn't in the best financial, position then. So they were looking at drivers that would bring people to their community. And for whatever reason, they happen to have lots of restaurants in that corridor or in their special district, business district. So this was just one of several programs that they had. They were also looking for low-interest loans for businesses in the area. So I think everything they've done mostly has had some sort of connection to a financial incentive. Brandon.
I mean, I think it's all interesting. It's all hypothetical right now, so we don't, like I said, no restaurants or anything right now are part of it.
We could ask if the restaurants in town would,
Yeah, that's another
Would-
thing that I
would-
think I brought up before. Have we even approached some of the restaurants, just gauge interest? Hey, would you be willing to be participant in this if the city helped in some way? I mean, if the restaurants were saying, hey, yeah, that'd be good. I don't know.
Do you want to entertain a comment from Alderwoman O'Neill?
Yes, absolutely. I didn't know she was on.
Okay, Kathy?
Okay, I just want to clarify that Green Dining Alliance isn't out to try to make money or to convert. They're there simply to try to make people sustainable, and it's small. There are only 2 people. One of them does the actual interviews and the checklist to help the restaurant owners become more sustainable. The other is more the face of Botanical Garden. They did not come in saying, we want you to do this to any of the restaurants and go through, knock on doors of Maplewood. It has been something where the owners have gotten together and they talk casually and they've said, this is a good thing. So the little bit of money that they get back isn't that much of an incentive for them to go through this whole process, but it is a perk. It is something that helps them once they're over the initial hump to keep interested and keep going. So please don't take this as Green Dining Alliance trying to beat the bushes and come in and take over anything here. That's the furthest thing from it. We've approached them to say, what are you doing to get your restaurants to do this? And how can we, as Brandon said, be more like Maplewood? South Grant, near Tower Grove Park is another one, and the Loop is one, and Kirkwood, I understand, is looking into this too. So a lot of the restaurants we have are chains. Chains typically don't do this. We'd have to do a lot of talking to get them to go, but it's an effort to be sustainable, not to make a big profit from this.
Thanks, Kathy. Appreciate your experience in correcting things I say incorrectly. The brains on this, by the way.
We all do it.
what's the direction?
Well, I think this is a good thing, so back to my other question, is there any information we could provide that would help sway decisions to think about whether this would be a positive thing for Brentwood? And maybe it's talking to the restaurants, maybe it's seeing what maybe we direct staff to talk to some of the non-chain restaurants, and then gauge what the financial impact to the city would be. Anything else that we could do?
No, I'll second that. I'd like to hear back from stakeholders on these type of things before we
Could I request that also there was a question about MyGov and, what would the mechanics be if we did do it, that they could start looking into that as well? Like, I don't know, does Maplewood use MyGov? How are they doing it to research out a little bit?
Okay.
Of course, we really have till next year.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, but,
yeah.
Again, we might hypothetically see some development ideas in the next 6 days or so in Brentwood bound, right? I mean, just, hypotheticals.
Look, I'm not against Green Alliance. I'm not against a green district. I'm not at all. I just think that should just come about naturally, that these restaurants should want to do this type of thing. And I don't have any problem using the city website or whatever to promote, to send people in that direction. I'm just, when I see us starting to lose some revenue, as small as it is, but it seems to be gaining, I think we need that revenue to run our departments. My concern.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. I think, Bola, is it clear?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Great. Sorry.
Minutes.
Okay, yeah, we'll move to the consent agenda, just minutes. Getting a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, old business, 8A. So we've got the streetlight receptacles. Dan, you're back up.
This one, we're waiting for KCI. They had received a cost estimate from Meyer with the update for that truncated section, but they haven't sent it to us yet. So as soon as I have it, I'll be able to bring it back. You know, it might even require a special meeting. I'm not sure. I just know that they said they got it on Monday. There were questions with some of the pricing, so then they sent it back to Meyer, and then they'll send it to us as soon as we have. You know, that will forward it to the committee and put it in the weekly report. So not really any news on that one.
Any questions from anybody or clarification? Okay. Trash truck.
Trash truck. If you recall at the last Public Works Committee, we said that we would bring this up at Ways and Means since this requires money that wasn't necessarily budgeted. And the Ways and Means Committee actually supported the $35,000 grant. So rather than, you know, say that we didn't want it and then we would finance this in, say, year 2024, 2025, they supported the $35,000 because you don't want to walk away from that money. And then we need to work with finance and admin and figure out how we're actually going to finance this over a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year timeline. We did a 3-year last year for the Peterbilt truck that we have. I just need to figure out with the solid waste district if that meets their goals with their agreement. I just know you have to make the purchase within about an 18-month window. And we would have to bring the agreement back to the full board and then have them approve it through a resolution so that we can get all that done.
And you don't need a recommendation from us because that's going through Ways and Means, correct?
Correct. Yeah, Ways and Means already supported it, so now, and actually, we just need to do the agreement since Ways and Means already supported it, so.
So it's just informational for us.
Yeah, informational that, hey, guess what, we're going to try to get this trash truck. I looked online and I know that Sourcewell still has contracts with the different manufacturers, but I need to find out if we still have to go out for bids. Because if you read the agreement, it says on $100,000 or more, you're supposed to get 3 competitive bids, and it needs to be, I think it's a 5-day or greater time period that you advertise. But, you know, I wanted to see if you could use a cooperative to purchase it, and then that way you're not having to get bids and you shorten your timeline. So,
Yeah, Steve.
What's the going rate for a trash truck nowadays?
when we bought that one last year, it was $215,000. I have no idea where we're going with the chip shortage and supply chain and, you know, cost of steel and plastic and everything. But, you know, generally speaking, we think it should be under $250,000, but.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thanks, Dan.
Thanks.
So we don't have a 9A. We took that off, so we're back to 10A, citizen comments. Anyone? Anyone? Is there any new business before the board? Then we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, look, yeah.